If you thought that you knew Mississippi State's offense, think again.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, don't forget, you can also check us out on YouTube as well. My name is Caroline Fenton, and I am your host, as I am every single day. You can follow me on Twitter at Caroline Fenton1. We're just a few days away, just 2 days away. I guess, 48-ish hours less, 36-ish hours away from kickoff in Starkville. LSU finally opening up SEC play. And I always say this about the first 2 weeks of college football. Look, there is a certain fallacy attached to the first 2 weeks of college football because some teams like LSU play out of conference, Power 5, powerhouse opponents like LSU did with Florida State, like Alabama did with Texas. Not every team across college football elects to do that. So you might be looking through the first 2 weeks. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, this one team is absolutely incredible. They're unstoppable. They put up 6 sacks a game. They put up 50 points a game. Yes, but who were they playing? Like a middle school football team. So let's always keep that in mind. So I always like whenever we start to get into conference play because I think it's so much more revealing. I think that you learn so much more once you get into conference play, once you have higher level opponents, and once there starts to be an evening of the playing field, so to speak, where every team across across college football are starting to play high level opponents. So excited for this week. Fun week 3, fun week 4. I mean, we were really getting into the fun nitty gritty of college football. But hey, today's episode of Locked On LSU is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. So get yours today at jacemedical.com. That is JASE medical.com. All right, well, let's get into it because this is a Mississippi State team, unlike a Mississippi State team that we have seen in the last few years. Every year, at least under Mike Leach, we as LSU fans would go into this Mississippi State game having a really good idea of the identity of this football team. It was clear what Mississippi State running the air raid wanted to do every single week. And I've looked at it and said, if you get pressure on the quarterback and if your DBs can win those one-on-one matchups with their receivers, well, that's all you got to do. And I say that's all that you have to do. I mean, there's a reason why the air raid is the air raid. It's not the easiest offense to defend, but it was a fairly one-dimensional approach. And if they could beat you through the air, they would beat you, period. Because that's what they did best. If Mississippi State, if their receivers were faster than your DBs, and if your defensive line couldn't get to the quarterback, then you lose. Well, this Mississippi State offense, now that Zach Arnett has taken over as the head coach, as a defensive coordinator under Mike Leach, may he rest in peace, Zach Arnett has taken over as the head coach. And if you know the identity of teams with defensive head coaches, you know that the air raid, the pass heavy is about the antithesis of what to expect from a defensive head coach. Think about Bill Belichick, for example. The Patriots have never been, the sling it around nouveau riche kind of offense. Think about Nick Saban before, the new age of college football, where Nick Saban has done it better than basically anyone and he's adapted. But think back to those late 2000s, 2010 Alabama teams. They played just hard-nosed, tough, run the football. Think about how many Alabama quarterbacks have just kind of been fizzled out in the NFL. Think about AJ McCarron or Greg McElroy, those eras of Alabama football. That is a picturesque defensive head coach kind of football. Think about that now with Mississippi State. So it is now basically, from what we have seen through 2 weeks of Zach Arnett's offense, they want to run the football. So if you thought you knew Mississippi State, throw it 50 times a game. Quarterback puts up 400 yards of offense. Like, think about first game of 2020. COVID season, LSU opened with Mississippi State. I don't know why the quarterback's name is escaping me. Someone will remind me in the comments. Put up over 600 passing yards. 600. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous. Not this Mississippi State team. Not this Mississippi State offense. This is a completely different Mississippi State offense, just to put that into perspective. Will Rogers, who is still at Mississippi State, I think he's been at Mississippi State for going on 15 years now. Will Rogers, in the first game against Memphis, Will Rogers attempted 49 passes and put up 450 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception against Memphis. To put that into context, this season, week 1, Will Rogers attempted 29 passes compared to 49 week 1 last year. Put up 227 yards as opposed to over 400 last year, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Last week against Arizona, Will Rogers only attempted 17 passes and put up 162 yards. Will Rogers has combined for 46 pass attempts in 2 weeks so far this season. That's 3 less than 1 game alone in the first week last season. To put that even to further context, Jaquavius Marks, who we will get into Jaquavius Marks. That's one guy that you're going to have to circle to look out for this LSU defense. Jaquavius Marks in 2022 rushed for 532 yards through an entirety of a season, through 12 games. Through 2 games, Jaquavius Marks has put up 250. Like, he's almost to the halfway point of the number of rushing yards that he put up in the entirety of last year, just through 2 games. This is a completely different team. And I'll tell you the good and the bad of that. I'll start with the bad. We'll end with the good. I'm in a good mood. The bad of that is if LSU's defense sells out to stop the run. Will Rogers is a quarterback that we have seen. We know he used to run the air raid. He can just throw himself into a victory. You can't sell out to stop any part of this Mississippi State offense. In the past, you could sell out to stop the pass. You could just completely stack it in the backfield, run a 4-3, put double team every single one of their receivers. You can't do that anymore. You have to respect the run. If you stack the box, then Will Rogers has the arm that he can throw it deep. He can get those receivers involved. Now, the good part of that is we haven't really seen Mississippi State want to do that. Mississippi State played an ugly, ugly game against Arizona last week, but they still committed to the run. Even when the game was close, committed to the run. So that, I think, lends into LSU's favor. What's LSU's greatest weakness? The secondary. So if Mississippi State is just going to run, then great, wonderful. They're going to run into a brick wall on that defensive line. Now, I think that Zach Arnett and that coaching staff is probably smart enough to maybe say, hey, let's not do something that's not working. But I didn't see them do that last week. They did a whole lot of run, punt. Run, punt. Even when it seemed like maybe you should have shaken things up a bit. Like Mississippi State last week against Arizona. Arizona turned the ball over 5 times. 5 times. Jaden DeLora, their quarterback, threw 4 interceptions, and they still went to overtime. So the run, clearly, it was not working that well. So if Mississippi State wants to commit to the run, well, then great. Great. Because then you don't have to expose your secondary. So that's the good and the bad. The other bad part of that is, I'll go bad, bad, good, bad. The other part of that is that's only 2 weeks of a sample size with this new offense, with this new coaching staff, with Zach Arnett at the helm. They could be keeping some things close to the chest to not have on film for SEC play. But we'll continue the conversation coming up next. Let's look at the Mississippi State side of things. What is their game plan? We'll get into that coming up next. Have you ever, let's say, maybe been on vacation, whether it's, domestic travel, whether it's international travel, and through all of that travel, being in airports, being on airplanes, people coughing all over you, germs everywhere. You're on vacation, you're away from home, you're away from your primary care physician, you get sick. Maybe it's a sinus infection, maybe it's strep throat, but you are miserable and you don't want to be sick and feel bad on vacation, but you also might not have access or easy access to medication. You don't want to take time out of your precious vacation time to go to an urgent care if an urgent care is even available. That is where the Jace case comes in. That's where Jace Medical can help you out. With storms, shortages, pandemics, supply chain issues, we all need to be prepared now more than ever with things that could possibly save our lives. And hey, Jace Medical is simple. Just go online, fill out a form, and then you get a prescription with life saving medications right to your door. The Jace case provides 5 life saving antibiotics for emergency use. So you get one, and then you have these antibiotics to use at your disposal whenever you might need them. Let's say whenever you might be traveling and you don't have access to those medications. So the Jace case gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure that you have that medication in hand. So save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code Locked On. Use my code Locked On at checkout on jasemedical.com. That is JASE medical.com. College football season is here, and this season, Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every single Locked On College YouTube channel, including Locked On LSU. So you can find it on Friday morning right here where you're watching this podcast. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. So find Locked On College Football Kickoff live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. That is 10 a.m. to noon local Baton Rouge time on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You will not want to miss it. Well, let's get back into it because we are just a few days away, less than 2 days away from LSU opening up SEC play on the road in Starkville, taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Zach Arnett took over as the interim head coach when Mike Leach tragically passed away. He was named the head coach this season. So this is his first game as the official head coach of Mississippi State, the first in-conference SEC game. So this means a lot to that team. I mean, it means a lot to Zach Arnett, and it means a lot to this team for a few reasons. One, it's getting in the win column. Two, it's LSU. Like, we would be remiss to think that that doesn't carry a lot of weight to teams that LSU just historically wins against. Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State. That you'd be remiss to think that beating LSU isn't a massive, massive deal. And of course, winning any conference game, winning any interdivisional game means a lot. Racking up the wins in the SEC column are important, 100%. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter if it's LSU. Doesn't mean if it's, no disrespect, Vanderbilt. But, those conference wins matter. But I think it's also, the meaning behind those games. I mean, Zach Arnett was asked about it. This was Zach Arnett.
Coming up to, obviously, the Saturday, you mentioned LSU, just how much that game means to kind of a lot of people around here. What would it mean for, you guys, from a recruiting base, for the brand, for, you and helping put this program even more on the map to kind of get the win on Saturday, get a 3-0 start? What could that do for
I leave all that for you guys to write about, right? And for us, it means we're 3-0 and 1-0 in conference.
Very coach speak response to that question about what does this game mean, but it's a fair question. Yeah, we're 1-0 in conference, we're 3-0, and we're on to the next game. Okay, I understand that that's what you have to say in front of the cameras, that you're not in front of the cameras going to say, this means everything to us. I get it. I understand. And that's also kind of Zach Arnett's personality. He's kind of a hard ass, and I love him. I've appreciated about him. But let's not forget that Mississippi State as they do every week, but especially with an LSU team. It would be a statement win for them. So keep that in mind when they go out on the field on Saturday. That they want to win this game. They want to beat LSU. So how are they going to do that? How are they going to do that? Zach Arnett was asked about Jaden Daniels. So let's look back to last week. Mississippi State played Arizona. Arizona's starting quarterback's name is Jaden Delora. And Jaden Delora is not just the same name as Jaden Daniels, but also has a very similar skill set. He's incredibly elusive. He can extend plays with his legs. Not quite to the level that Jaden Daniels can do it, but it's still the same idea that he's going to be running all around the pocket, that if he doesn't have, the first read's not there, if the second read's not there, if no reads are there, he can jet off and get out of the pocket and, pick up a yard here and there and possibly even a first down. So how is that going to translate from Mississippi State's game planning for Jaden Delora to this week? This was Zach Arnett on how to contain Jaden Daniels in the pocket.
Delora had a lot of success getting out of the pocket. Jaden Daniels does a lot of some of the same things.
Really?
LSU.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, what have you seen from him that makes him so dangerous? Obviously, game plan against him last year too, but what really stands out about him and what they do offensively too at LSU?
Well, they have tremendous personnel, right? I mean, their offensive line is big and pretty and physical and athletic, right? They got a tight end room who obviously looks the part. They got tremendous speed and athleticism at all their skill positions. Running backs are hard to tackle because they're big and thick and physical, but also, can break away for a long one. And to top it off, you have a quarterback who is equally adept at throwing it as he is to running it. Last week's game versus Arizona felt very much like last year's game versus LSU. I mean, it's modern football, right? That an accomplished passer who also can hurt you just as much with his legs is not fun to defend, right? And so you have to constantly shift the stress around on defense, right? Sometimes that forces you to shift some stress to your back end. Sometimes that forces you to shift the stress up to your front. Right, and you're hoping you can manage that throughout the course of a game. I can give you a long dissertation right now about, all the different ways that you can try. You got to keep the quarterback in the pocket, obviously, right? You got to keep the quarterback in the pocket, but yet you still have to generate a pass rush, right? So what is that? There's that fine line between how do you cut guys loose and let them go try to win their one-on-ones, but not let seams emerge within, pass rush lanes and scramble lanes.
And Zach Arnett does have a tendency, the more that I listen to him, to have a tendency to get real, inside baseball, real X's and O'sy. But that's okay. And side note, I loved, the question was, Jaden Daniels has a tendency to get out of the pocket. Oh, really? What Zach Arnett says? I love that. I appreciate him. I love Zach Arnett. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. He's very sarcastic, but I appreciate that. What he said about Jaden Daniels and what he said about this offense as a whole, I think that LSU could be faced in a very similar position on their side of the defense. There's a lot of different looks that Mississippi State could potentially throw at you. The key, I think, for LSU is exactly the same thing that I said could possibly be a good thing for LSU based off of Mississippi State's offense, is if they just continue to commit to the run. If they continue to just run it on you, well, that makes your job a lot easier because then you can sell out for one thing. If they prove to you that, hey, if the run's not working, we're still going to try running the ball because we don't want to throw the football. I think that that's the key for LSU offensively, is be a balanced offense. Run the ball, run it with Jaden Daniels, and also, allow Jaden Daniels to dink and dunk it. Allow Jaden Daniels to air it out. Make Mississippi State's defense continue to have to guess. Zach Arnett, like I said, he's a defensive guy. He was Mississippi State's defensive coordinator this past year. He can make those quick defensive adjustments on the fly. So make Mississippi State's defense get used to something that you're doing and make adjustments to accommodate for it, and then pull the rug from up underneath them and do something completely different. Keep them guessing, because this is an offense that we have seen they can throw the football, maybe not as well as we would have liked, but still They've got receivers that can throw the football. You've got a tight end, Mason Taylor, injury update. We'll get into that in tomorrow's episode. You got a tight end you can throw the ball to in short yardage situations. You've got running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. And you got running backs that can run the heck out of the football, as we saw last week with Logan Diggs. So you have the personnel and you have the weapons to be a balanced offense. So be a balanced offense and make Mississippi State's defense guess and make them guess wrong. So that's one of my keys, and we'll continue to get into the keys for the game on tomorrow's episode. My 3 ways that LSU can win. Whoa, we'll get into that on tomorrow's podcast. But coming up next, one thing that Brian Kelly has talked a lot about and was asked a lot about, and how much that really is a factor for LSU on Saturday against Mississippi State. We'll get into that coming up next. First, I want to tell you about Game Time. So, have you ever been one of those people like me where you are sitting on your computer on a third-party ticket website, refreshing, waiting to get your time in line? And then the website crashes, and then all of the tickets are super expensive, and then you wait in these long lines, and then the tickets are sold out. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there too. It is so incredibly frustrating, and it is so stressful. But hey, buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. So that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all your sporting events, music events, comedy events, and theater events near you. So one of the best things, one of my favorite things about Game Time is they have last minute tickets and flash deals leading up to the events. If you're like me, you have a tendency to procrastinate, it's okay. Game Time will actually reward you for it. They've got last minute ticket deals with the best price guarantee. So stop stressing over the tickets and start getting pumped up for the concert you're going to or the game that you're going to, whatever event it might be. Don't worry about buying tickets. Just worry about the plans. Worry about what you're going to wear. And worry about texting your friends to figure out a pregame. Get images of your seat before you buy it so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. That's one thing that I have gotten frustrated with before with buying tickets on third-party ticket websites is they'll show you the picture, but it's, they conveniently Photoshop out the view-obstructing pole that's right in front of you. Not with Game Time. You'll get those images of your seat before you buy so you know if that's where you want to be or not. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Well, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Every day is coming up tomorrow on the podcast. 3 ways that LSU can beat Mississippi State. My 3 keys to the game, plus some of my betting picks from our friends over at FanDuel. We'll get into that on tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU. But one thing that I've noticed Brian Kelly mention in a couple of his press conferences this week is 11 a.m. kick. He's mentioned, gotta get everyone up for an 11 a.m. kick, got to accommodate for an 11 a.m. kick. And he was asked about, really like what kind of change does that bring? Like, what does your daily schedule look like with an 11 a.m. kick, which inherently is going to be different versus, a 7:30 Central kick or a 6 o'clock kick. And he talked about how, it's going to be an early morning and they've got an hour drive from Tupelo to Starkville and it's different. But I've wondered, how much of a factor is that really? How much of a disadvantage could that possibly be for LSU? On the road, early game, a team that's not really used to playing early games and a team that, frankly, has looked pretty bad in early kicks. Let's not forget the 11 a.m. kickoff against Tennessee, and that was at home. So I asked a former player, played at the college level, played at the NFL level. I asked this former player, I said, what really is the factor or the impact for 1, an early kick, and 2, an early kick on the road? And he said it actually benefits the visiting team. And I was like, okay, tell me more. Are you just telling me this because I'm an LSU fan, or did you tell me the truth? He said, no, it's actually the truth. 1, it benefits the road team because the home team is going to, they're going to have their normal home routines, but the timing is going to be completely thrown off. At least when you're the visiting team, everything's different. You're on the road, you're in a strange hotel, you've got the bus ride, you're going into a different locker room. So what's adding one more thing of, a different time? Everything is different, and you can mentally prepare yourself for things to be different because you're going on the road. The home team, everything's the same except you're waking up early AF. So that advantage visiting team. The second thing is you're going into an environment that's annoying. Like, cowbells are annoying. They're boisterous. They can get to you. Like, that is an advantage at Mississippi State at Davis-Wade Stadium is the cowbell situation, the cowbell factor of it all. But this former player that I asked said, when you're a visiting team and going into an early kick, you can expect the home crowd to be trickling in a little bit late. A 6 p.m. kick, everyone's been waiting, everyone's been chomping at the bit, everyone's been tailgating, everyone's got a few Coca-Colas in their system, and it's going to be rowdy from the time that you hit the field. 11 a.m. games are a little bit different. Fans might not get there right on time. Fans might not be properly lubricated, so to speak. So it's going to be a calmer environment off the jump. So it gives you, your team, time to settle in an unfamiliar environment without the factor of crowd noise. Now, of course, like, there very well could be a packed Davis-Wade Stadium with, cowbells just freaking out from 9 a.m. on, but more so in theory. So that's, for whatever that is worth. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what time the game is. Just go out there, play your best playmakers. Don't turn the football over. Don't make stupid mistakes. And you have a good chance at winning. But that's going to do it for me today. Tomorrow, 3 keys to victory for the LSU Tigers on the road at Mississippi State. All that coming up on tomorrow's edition of Locked In LSU.